You were never meant to have anything. My mother's words cut through the oak-paneled room like a blade, her voice laced with smugness and contempt. Across the polished table, my brother reclined in his chair, lips curled in a lazy grin as though $25 million meant nothing to him but pocket change. Around us, the rest of the family shifted and squirmed, casting quick, guilty glances at me before looking away, as if my humiliation might stain them too. I sat rigid, my hands folded so tightly in my lap that my nails dug crescents into my palms. The lawyer's flat, emotionless reading had just confirmed what I had dreaded for months. Everything, every house, every heirloom, every cent of my parents' legacy had been left to him. To my brother, not to me. It was as though I had been erased from the family ledger, written out like I had never even existed. Maybe now you'll finally stop asking for things, my mother added, her voice twisting the knife. My father gave a short, satisfied chuckle, the kind of laugh that said a burden had finally been cut loose. Hello, my name is Danielle. I'm 27 years old, and in that suffocating room one thought burned through me like wildfire. Why does betrayal by blood feel so much crueler than the hatred of strangers? The heavy velvet curtains trapped the smell of old perfume and waxed wood. My brother adjusted his cufflinks, his gold watch catching the light, a watch I had once bought him back when I still believed he cared about me. My throat tightened, but I refused to cry. My silence was a weapon now. Then something shifted. Grandfather's lawyer, a quiet man with silver hair and tired eyes, cleared his throat. His voice, suddenly different, carried a deliberate weight. Before we conclude, he said, reaching into a separate folder, there's a private clause your grandfather left. One meant only for Danielle. The room erupted. My mother's chair screeched across the floor as she shot to her feet, panic flashing across her carefully composed face. What kind of nonsense is this? She snapped. My father's chuckle faltered. My brother's smirk dissolved. The lawyer didn't flinch. He drew out a single sheet of paper and unfolded it slowly, his hand steady, his tone firm. The words that followed cracked the silence like a thunderclap across a black sky. I watched my mother's mask of superiority splinter. Her painted lips twisted into a scream that rattled the chandelier above us. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being humiliated. The balance of power was tilting, and every pair of eyes swung toward me. The storm had only begun. My mother's shrill cry still vibrated in the air, high enough to make the chandelier tremble. She lunged at the lawyer, clawing for the paper, but he leaned back calmly as though he had been expecting her desperation. This clause, he said evenly, has been locked in my office safe for years. Your father, he looked at me with a flicker of softness, intended for it to be revealed only at this exact moment. The air thickened with tension. My brother leaned forward, his knuckles whitening against the mahogany table. This is absurd, he hissed. Grandpa adored me. If there was anything left, it would have gone to me. The lawyer ignored him. He unfolded the page completely, his voice rising over the crackling silence. To my granddaughter Danielle, I leave what I could never entrust to anyone else. My personal estate, my properties abroad, and full control of the family trust that none of them even knew existed. Gasps tore through the room. My father's jaw locked. My mother's face went paper white. My brother slammed his fist onto the table so hard the glasses jumped. This isn't legal. It can't be. The lawyer's mouth curved into a small, knowing smile. It's perfectly legal, he replied. I drafted the documents myself. They're ironclad. Every gaze pinned itself on me again. Heat surged through my body, but I sat motionless, absorbing the chaos. For years, I had been the family's shadow, the mistake they could ignore. And now, with one stroke of my grandfather's pen, everything had shifted. My mother's scream collapsed into a strangled sob. I did not move. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was the epicenter. And the storm that had been building for years was finally mine to command. She sagged back into her chair, shoulders folding inward as though the weight of years had finally caught up with her. This wasn't supposed to happen, she murmured, her voice a thin thread of disbelief. My father's silence was worse than any shouted curse. His eyes met mine but didn't recognize me, like he was staring at a stranger who had slipped out of his control. I drew in a long breath. It lifted just enough of the heaviness for my voice to cut through. Maybe grandfather knew the truth about all of you. As the words left my mouth, something shifted. The sense of being small, of being cornered, drained out of me. The room didn't belong to them anymore. It belonged to me. The silence thickened, humming like air before a storm. My brother's chair screeched as he shoved it back, his face distorted with rage. "You think you deserve this?" he snapped, pointing at me as though accusing me of a crime. "You've done nothing for this family." Nothing. I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could, the lawyer placed a sealed envelope on the table between us. "This," he said evenly, "is more than money or property. Inside are documents your grandfather prepared, records of mismanagement, hidden accounts, and proof of who was truly responsible for draining the family fortune." My father shifted in his seat. His fingers twitched at his cufflinks, a nervous tick I'd never seen before. My mother's eyes darted between the envelope and my father's face, flickering with panic. That was when I realized they weren't afraid of losing wealth. They were terrified of being unmasked. I leaned forward slowly, my voice low but sharp. "Maybe grandfather finally gave me the one thing you could never buy, the truth." My mother bolted upright, trembling. "You have no idea what you're saying," she cried. "He's trying to destroy this family, even from the grave." Her voice cracked, the mask she'd worn my whole life tearing away in front of me. The lawyer slid the envelope toward me. "It belongs to Danielle," he said quietly. "By law, she alone decides what to do with it." My brother lunged across the table, but my father's arm shot out to stop him. The silence between them was heavier than any argument. They both knew. I picked up the envelope. It weighed far more than paper should. My fingertips tingled, my chest tightened, but I didn't falter. I looked at each of them, my sneering brother, my mocking mother, my dismissive father, and let a small, almost imperceptible smile touch my lips. For the first time, they were the ones who looked small. And I was the storm they'd never seen coming. My fingers traced the sealed edge. Their stares pressed down on me. But instead of feeling crushed, I felt lifted. Every breath they took was shallow, waiting for me to open what my grandfather had left behind. "Danielle," my father said finally, his voice low and dangerous, an undercurrent of pleading beneath its steel. "Be reasonable. Don't let some old man's paranoia destroy this family. Whatever's in there won't change the truth." I tilted my head, my voice steady. "Whose truth, Dad? Yours or his?" The lawyer gave me a subtle nod, as if to remind me this moment was mine. I broke the seal. The sound of tearing paper echoed like thunder in the suffocating silence. My mother whimpered, clutching my brother's arm as though bracing for impact. Inside lay stacks of documents, deeds to properties I never knew existed, banking records from overseas accounts, letters in my grandfather's sharp, deliberate handwriting. The lawyer read the first aloud. "To Danielle, the only one I could trust. I have watched the way they treated you, discarded you, diminished you. What they never knew is that I built a fortune beyond the family's reach. It belongs to you now because you are the only one with integrity strong enough to carry it." My mother gasped, her face draining of color. My brother muttered curses under his breath, shaking his head violently. My father stood rigid, jaw locked, eyes burning with unspoken fury. The words burned and soothed me all at once. For years they told me I was worthless, that I didn't belong. Yet here was proof that someone had seen me, truly seen me, all along. I lifted my gaze, meeting their eyes one by one. "Looks like grandfather's truth was bigger than all your lies." In that moment, I could almost hear his laughter, soft, proud, echoing through the silence they could no longer control. The room felt like it had cracked open. My brother shot to his feet, veins bulging at his neck. "This is fraud." He was senile, manipulated. "There's no way this holds up in court." His voice cracked under panic. The lawyer didn't flinch. "Your grandfather was of sound mind when these were signed. They're notarized, witnessed, and secured by my firm. They're airtight." My father's hand slammed down on the table, the wood vibrating under the impact. "We built this family name," he spat. "We earned every dollar. And you," his eyes cut into me, sharp and venomous, "you think you can just swoop in and take what you never earned?" I felt my lips curl into something colder than a smile. Funny, I whispered. That's exactly what you told me my whole life. My mother broke then. Her polished mask shattered into frantic desperation. She reached across the table, her manicured nails clawing at the documents as if she could pull back her power. Danielle, please. We can fix this. Split it. Share it. Don't ruin us. Her words stung, not because they were sincere, but because for the first time she spoke as though I mattered. And yet, I knew it wasn't me she cared for. It was the empire slipping through her fingers. I gathered the documents, stacking them neatly. My movements were slow, deliberate, untouchable. You ruined yourselves, I said softly. Grandfather just made sure the world would finally see it. I had made certain I wouldn't sync with them. The lawyer shut his folder with a sharp snap, his tone unshakable. This concludes the reading of the will. Danielle, the transfer will be initiated immediately. The scrape of chair legs screeched against the polished floor, followed by hushed murmurs that darted across the room like sparks. Faces turned, eyes restless, greedy, afraid. My brother shot up in fury, the slam of the heavy door shaking the chandelier until its crystals chimed nervously. My mother collapsed into her hands, her sobs thick and ugly. My father didn't move. His stillness was worse than anger, like a storm pause just before it destroys. I stood slowly, pressing the envelope tight against my chest. For the first time, the air didn't suffocate me. It crackled, alive, charged. They had erased me long ago, counted me out. But now I was rewriting the story they thought they controlled. Out in the hallway, the carved oak door clicked shut behind me. The silence of the mansion pressed close, heavy and expectant. My heartbeat was no longer frantic. It was even, grounded. Behind that door, I could still hear their voices breaking. My mother's weeping, my father's growl, my brother's furious shouting. For once, disgrace didn't cling to me. It was theirs to carry. I walked the corridor lined with portraits, generations of stern faces painted into permanence. Their gazes had always condemned me as an outsider, a blemish. But tonight, I wasn't the stain. I was the continuation my grandfather had chosen. The lawyer caught up quickly, his polished shoes hushed against the carpet. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Danielle, there's something else. A part that wasn't revealed inside. I turned. His expression was careful. Your grandfather prepared a second set of instructions for you alone. He left the choice of when or if to reveal them. A chill slid through me. What kind of instructions? He produced a small black leather notebook, weathered but intact, clearly preserved with care. Inside are the answers to questions you didn't even know existed. Proof, protection, a path forward. I accepted it reverently, my throat tightening. This wasn't only an inheritance. It was his final dialogue with me. Words carried from beyond the grave. The door behind us burst open again. My brother stormed down the hall, face flushed, tie hanging loose. You think this is finished? He barked, stopping just feet from me, his voice raw with rage. I'll drag you through every courtroom, every newspaper. You won't last a day with what you've been handed. I didn't flinch. I cracked the notebook open slightly, catching the sight of my grandfather's familiar handwriting. My brother's threats shrank in comparison. Maybe, I said softly. But here's the difference. I've got nothing left to lose. And you're about to lose everything. For a fleeting second, I saw it, fear. Real fear in his eyes. His fury faltered, trembling at the edges. He clenched his fists, jaw tight, but when he finally turned away, his footsteps echoed like defeat. For the first time in years, his retreat wasn't victory. It was surrender. The lawyer touched my arm gently. Be cautious, Danielle. With what you now hold, they'll come for you, not just in anger, but with calculation. I nodded. Inside me, calm grew like steel. The notebook felt alive in my hands, pulsing with weight. Later, back in the solitude of my apartment, I opened it completely. My grandfather's script sprawled across the first page, steady and commanding. If you are reading this, then the truth has forced its way to daylight. They will rage. They will plot. But remember, power is not about what you hold. It is about the choices you make. Page after page unfolded into revelations, Names, accounts, timelines. Evidence of years of deception by my father and brother. Concealed debts, fraudulent transfers, scandals buried beneath their influence. Their empire wasn't made of strength. It was stitched from lies. My breath caught. Grandpa hadn't left me mere wealth. He'd armed me with the means to dismantle them. My phone buzzed hard against the table. First my mother's name lit the screen. Then my father's. Then my brother's. Calls ignored, one after the other, stacking like barricades between us. Finally a message appeared. If you expose us, you'll regret it. Walk away while you can. I stared at the words. No fear rose inside me, only fire. They still believed threats would silence me. They still believed I was the daughter who bowed, the sister who settled for scraps. They were wrong. I set the notebook on the table. Its leather cover gleamed under the lamp, and my reflection stared back, not the forgotten child, but the keeper of truth. Soon, the world would speak for me. A week later, I entered the boardroom that had once been my father's throne. Glass walls framed the skyline, their kingdom glittering on illusion. At the far end, my parents sat rigid, my brother beside them, gaunt and sleepless. Across the table, auditors, reporters, and business partners waited, pens raised, cameras ready. I placed the notebook down with deliberate care. For years, I was told I was undeserving. That I was nothing, I said, voice calm and unwavering. I opened the notebook, laying bare the evidence. But the truth was never theirs to bury. Auditors leaned forward, documents examined. Gas spread like wildfire as debts, forgeries, hidden scandals poured into daylight. My father's facade cracked, his hand trembling as his empire disintegrated. My mother whispered frantically, smearing lipstick as panic overtook her. My brother's fist balled tight, but he didn't move. He couldn't. I didn't scream. I didn't gloat. The truth thundered louder than revenge ever could. By the time the session ended, their legacy lay in ruins. Their wealth stripped. Their reputation shattered in front of witnesses no amount of money could sway. And me, I didn't wait to savor their downfall. I gathered the notebook, slipped it under my arm, and stepped outside into the crisp autumn air. Strangers moved around me, unaware of the storm just ended. I inhaled deeply, the city lights glittering like applause only I could hear. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't diminished. I was free. My grandfather hadn't left me riches. He'd left me a choice. And I chose not to become them. I chose to rise, steady and untamed. I paused on the sidewalk, letting the wind brush against my face. A whisper slipped from my lips, carried into the night. Thank you, Grandpa. You saved me. And with that, the weight I had carried all my life finally released.